Gather round and welcome back to another edition of Todd Talks College Football. That's right, folks. Today we are going to be breaking down our first weekly predictor show, and that would be week one of the college football season. And let me tell you, there's some big games on this schedule. We're going to get this season kicked off with an incredible weekend of college football, all the way from Thursday through Monday. But we're going to focus on 6 games that I think are going to be must-watch TV for this week in college football. Sit back, grab a drink, and let's break down these 6 matchups that we're going to be looking at for sure on this first week of the college football season. Let's start off in Boulder, Colorado for a big matchup on Friday night between the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets and the Colorado Buffaloes. We've got Haynes and Haynes, the quarterback, Haynes King, and Jamal Haynes coming in for the Georgia Tech Ramblin' Wreck. Big portion of the offense last year is back for Georgia Tech, coming off of a pretty decent season, looking for a lot more this year. And if you remember, folks, I got this team in my playoffs sitting at 10-2. We've got Colorado coming in with a transfer quarterback in Keaton Salter from Liberty. Had a pretty good season out in Liberty last year. He had, just under 1,900 yards passing and just under 600 yards rushing, combined for about 22 touchdowns. So he's an experienced quarterback coming into Colorado. They also have a super freshman, J.J. Lewis, Julian Lewis. We'll see how much time Dion likes to split these two up. If he's going to let Salter play for the whole season or the whole game, is he going to bring Lewis in? Is this going to be a quarterback battle at the beginning of the season for Colorado? We'll see exactly where all that breaks down on Friday night. He hasn't really named a starter yet. I feel like it's going to be Salter just because of the experience, and then they're going to work Lewis in as they can. We'll see exactly how the breakdown goes. Colorado is returning probably their best offensive line since Dion's been there in Boulder. So can they get this running game going this year? They didn't get a great running game production last year out of these tailbacks up there in Colorado. We got Micah Welsh and Dallin Hayden. Dallin Hayden, for you old Buckeye fans, will know he was a transfer out there last season. He did okay, but they just couldn't run the ball last year at Colorado very well. I think they're going to get some improvement in that position, especially with this offensive line. We know one thing for sure. We know Georgia Tech's going to run the ball. I mean, the Haynes and Haynes duo, they combined for over 1,500 yards rushing last year between the two of them. Jamal rushed for over 1,000. Haynes King at quarterback rush for just under 500. So we're going to definitely see a heavy run game coming out of Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech did lose their leading receiver last year to a transfer in Eric Singleton. He went to Auburn. We'll be talking about him next. In the next profile, they do have their second receiving threat back in Malik Rutherford. He had just over 700 yards receiving last year, so he's coming back. I really like this offense that Georgia Tech is bringing in. I love the toughness of Haynes King at the quarterback position, and then obviously Jamal Haynes at the running back position. So I really feel like this is going to be a battle in the trenches to see who can get their running game going the quickest. I think Georgia Tech will. Colorado is bringing back some transfers here at the wide receiver position to go with that quarterback and a deep room. They got a lot of kids there in the wide receiver room at Colorado, but we're going to see who can step up and make the plays come Friday night there in Boulder. The defensive line for Colorado should be one of the strengths of the defense this year. They're pretty good defensively in the defensive line, especially in the interior. That'll be a big improvement over the last couple years for them. So I really expect them to be able to shut down some of this running game from Georgia Tech, but not enough to win the game, in my opinion. We'll see exactly where I put the final score in a minute. They do return McKinney, a solid corner back there in Boulder, and he will probably lead the secondary. Again, a bunch of kids that haven't played a lot, but they got talent and depth there at Colorado after the third year, here in the third year with Dion. So I expect them to be better on defense than they were last year, and they were pretty decent on defense last year. So I think they're going to improve in this area. Can they improve enough to win this game, and can they get the offense going enough to get enough points to win this game? We do have Georgia Tech they're returning 4 of their top 5 leading tacklers coming into the 2025 season. So I really expect Georgia Tech's defense to be playing at a pretty good, not midseason level, but I think they're going to be definitely a strong point of this Georgia Tech defense, or this Georgia Tech team this year, is the defense. So I got this game coming down. We got Colorado getting 4.5 at home. I see this game being a 27-24 Georgia Tech victory, which puts us inside the 4.5 that Colorado's getting. So we also got an over-under at 52.5. I got this game coming in at 51 points, just on the under. I think both teams are going to, kind of like what we saw last week in Kansas State and Iowa State game. It's going to take these offenses a little while to get going. I think we'll see about 51 points, just under the over-under of 52.5. And I like Georgia Tech to win a close one, 27-24, with Colorado getting 4.5. You might want to take Colorado in the 4.5 in the under. I'm not telling you what to do. This is just for entertainment purposes only. But I think we're going to look at a 27-24 game, around 51 points, just under the 52.5 out there in Boulder. Should be an exciting game and a great matchup for one of the first big games of the college football weekend. All right, let's move over to Waco, Texas, and the Auburn Tigers are traveling to the Baylor Bears on Friday night. This is going to be going right up against that Georgia Tech-Colorado game, so you're going to need to have 2 TVs on Friday night because you're going to want to keep an eye on both of these matchups. So we got Hugh Freeze and the Auburn Tigers traveling into Waco, and this is a real interesting game. I really like Baylor's offense. I love Sawyer Robinson. I love Bryson Washington and Josh Cameron as our 1-2-3 quarterback, running back, wide receiver punch. I think this is a very talented offense. They did lose Pendergrass earlier this season, the dual running back that split some time with Washington, and unfortunately he's out for the season. They do have some other tailbacks I think that they're going to be able to split some time with, but I think this Baylor offense is going to be pretty explosive. The question's going to come is, has this defense repaired its leaky holes from last year, which was their secondary for one, and some of their pressures on the defensive line? If they can get more pressure defensively and, maybe hold up a little longer on the back end, this defense could be a little bit better, improved enough for Big 12 play. The question is it going to be improved enough to play an SEC team like Auburn? So we're going to find out real quick in this game. I think they're going to come with some schemes and some blitzes to try to confused Jackson Arnold there at Auburn in his first start at Auburn, coming out of a transfer from Oklahoma. So we'll see exactly where Jackson Arnold is against this defense, and if this defense can get enough pressure to get him on his back. Remember, Jackson was sacked, I think, the most of any quarterback last year in NCAA football. So, he's going to be trying to stand upright more here at Auburn this year. Auburn does back a great wide receiver core, and that starts with Cam Cameron. A little over 600 yards receiving in his freshman season, decided to return to Auburn. That's exciting. They also got Eric Singleton, who was Georgia Tech's #1 receiver last year, to transfer down into the Plains there at Auburn. And they got Malcolm Simmons coming back, who's a good third receiver here for this. So this wide receiving core should be pretty solid for Jackson Arnold. In his first start again at Auburn, he started last year at Oklahoma. How is he going to look here as an Auburn Tiger? Can he get himself into position to make the right throws? Is this running game going to be able to help him out? Now, Jackson can run some, but can this running game at Auburn really step up and take some of the pressure off of Jackson and give him some time to maybe run some play action, some other things that's going to help him get his footing back there and stay upright? So I think Auburn has a better offensive line this year than Oklahoma did last year in protecting Jackson Arnold. But a lot of this is about Jackson getting that ball out of his hand quickly and getting it to the right receivers in the patterns and seeing if he can make some plays. So I think, Auburn does also lose 4 of their top leading tacklers from last year. So they're going to need to replace some production in the tackling positions on this defense. But they got a strong nucleus coming back. So they could be a pretty solid SEC defense, middle of the road, upper echelon, top 7 maybe in the SEC. We'll see. All right, the over-under on this game is 2.5 for Baylor. Baylor getting 2.5 at home against Auburn, and we got an over-under at 57.5. Now, I see this game coming down real tight. I'm looking at a 31-27 victory for the Baylor Bears. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if it was the other way around, but I'm going to take Baylor at home, opening the season. I think they got a little bit more answers offensively. I think the defense is going to be improved enough. So I'm going to go 31-27. That's a total of 58. The over-under was 57.5. Again, I'm going to go ahead and take the over at 58. I could see this game turning into a potential turnover fest, if you want to call it that, or some mistake-prone game. And who can make the least mistakes, especially defensively for Baylor? Can they hold up against these receiving core of Auburn? It's going to be the real question. And then can Jackson Arnold get the ball out of his hand, make the right read, and make Baylor pay when they do mess up in that secondary? So, which they're gonna. It's just a matter of, can you capitalize on it when they do? So I got Baylor winning a close one, 31-27, just a half a point over the over of 57.5. Hey, let's move to Saturday. And right here in Columbus, Ohio, on the big noon kickoff, is going to be the Texas Longhorns against the Ohio State Buckeyes. And folks, this is going to be one for the ages to start the season, I can tell you that. I don't know who's going to win it yet. I got an idea in my head, and we'll see where we are here in just a minute. But I think we're going to see some real interesting things. Obviously, we're going to start with Arch Manning, making his first real start in a hostile environment for the Texas Longhorns. He's had some starts last year against some teams, but he hasn't started in a situation like he's going to start this season at Ohio Stadium. He's got Wisner back, the 1,000-yard running back, so that's going to help him out, giving him some comfort zone with the running game being solid. He also has Wingo and DeAndre Moore coming back in the wide receiver. Now, these were like the 4th and 5th receivers last year. Wingo was a freshman. He's going to have a breakout year this year, and Moore is a solid receiver. And they're going to have some more depth in that room, step up and make some plays at the wide receiver position. The real question with Texas, I think, going into the season is how well is this offensive line going to gel quickly? And are they going to be able to get some protection for Arch Manning when they want to go out to those 5 receiver sets? And how quickly can he get rid of the ball? And can he keep that protection in front of him for the time that he's going to need to release? So I really question the offensive line going into the game for Texas's offense. And that's really the biggest question mark I have, which could be a huge question if they can't protect Arch and Ohio State can get off the ball and get some sacks or at least some pressures or make him feel uncomfortable and throw one to Caleb Downs and let him get his Heisman campaign started off early. This defense is going to be pretty strong, ran obviously by Anthony Hill, top 3 player in the country, according to many people. Now, if you think about it, this game has 3 of the top 3 players in the country between Caleb Downs, Anthony Hill, and obviously the number one player in the country, Jeremiah Smith, at wide receiver for the Buckeyes. So talent abound here on the Ohio State and Texas Longhorn teams. So we're not going to see a lack of that. Are they going to be able to cover Jeremiah Smith in the same way that they were able to shut him down last year in a semifinal game? Remember, I think Jeremiah only had one catch that game, had a couple targets that he didn't catch, but he only had really one catch. Texas was able to do a real good job of blanketing that coverage. Now, I think that's going to be a little different this year. For one, they don't have two of those defensive players back this year that they had last year in that coverage scheme. So that's going to change it a little bit. But I think Ohio State has an X factor for them this year, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So let's move over to Ohio State for a minute. Now, we got a news at quarterback that Julian Sainz is going to be playing, going to be the starter. We'll see if Lincoln Keyholes gets any time. I think it's going to depend on the running game for Ohio State. They got Peoples, Donaldson, and Bo Jackson, the freshmen, all on the depth chart 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to see which one of these guys can carry the rock. I really think it's important for Ohio State to start off the game with developing a running game. If they can't get a running game going early in the game, this is going to be a challenging game for Julian Sainz. So I expect them to get a heavy dose of the running game early as they start to develop. Now, they're not going to overlook Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, and the X Factor, Max Clare. And yes, Max Clare, transfer from Purdue at the tight end position. He had over 600 yards receiving at Purdue last year, leading the team in receiving. And if you don't remember, Purdue was terrible, and this kid, Max, was the best player on their team, and he took all the coverage. And he still caught for 600 yards receiving from the tight end position. He gives Ohio State a much different tight end than what they've had in the past, and G. Scott last year and some other guys over the past few years. He gives them a more of a downfield receiving threat. So now Texas is going to have to deal with not only Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Brandon Ennis, but they're going to have to account for Max Clare, which I think is going to be the big difference in how they're going to roll coverages up on Jeremiah Smith. Because if they roll too much up and safety's over, you're going to be putting linebackers against Max Clare, and it is not going to be a good outcome for them at Texas if they have to cover Max Clare in a situation where he's just going to have an advantage over whoever he's playing against coming out of that linebacker position. So I think Max Clare is definitely an X factor in this game. Now, how good is Ohio State's interior defensive line going to be against Texas's run game? We talked about the O-line of Texas. How quickly can they gel in this game? Can they get, can they start pushing around, dominating the offensive line? We'll see, but it's really going to depend on how well Ohio State's interior defensive line starts out this year. So if they can get and stop that run game inside, force Arch Manning to run or to throw the ball quickly, they could get some pressure on them. It's going to be a great start for Ohio State's defense. So I'm looking for that. The next X factor for me in this game is going to be Matt Patricia and the Ohio State Buckeyes defense. Now, Texas has saw Ohio State just 2 games ago in the semifinal game, which Ohio State won, but they didn't see Matt Patricia as the defensive coordinator. They saw Jim Knowles as a defensive coordinator. So what changes is Matt Patricia going to make here going into this season that's going to maybe confuse Arch Manning and that defensive staff at Texas that they may not have been expecting? That'll be a real interesting development as the game goes on. What is Matt Patricia going to do with this defense? Now, what do I think he's going to do? I think we're going to see much different pressures, coverages, and pressures that Patricia's going to throw out there versus what Jim Knowles is going to throw out there. I think we might get back to seeing some things that we used to see at Ohio State, corner blitzes, safety blitzes, some different things like that that's going to maybe knock Arch off of his game. We'll see. But I'm real excited to see what this defense is going to look like under Matt Patricia versus what it looked like under Jim Knowles. And I think that's an advantage for Ohio State, at least early in the game when Texas is trying to figure out exactly what the defenses are covering. Now, Texas has their defense and offensive coordinators coming back from last year, so Ohio State has a real good idea what they're going to run and how they're going to run it and what their tendencies are going to be. But we really don't know anything about what Matt Patricia is going to do here with this defense. So, all right, we got Ohio State at -2.5 in this game. Now, again, I think this is an either way game here. I think this game could go, I think it's going to really depend on who can get the running game going the quickest and who doesn't make the big mistakes. That could be turnovers. That could be stupid penalties. That could be a lot of things. I got Ohio State pulling out a 26-24 victory here, just under the 2.5 line. Currently, I've seen on FanDuel, but I've seen other lines as low as 1.5 and even 1 on Ohio State giving those points. So I think this is a 26-24 game. I think it could go either way. I think Texas could very easily win this game. I think Ohio State can win this game. I think it's, again, back to who doesn't make the mistakes. We got an over-under at 47.5. I got this game coming in at 50 points, so just a little over. I could see it being under. I could see this game being a 23-24 type of game too. So I'm right in that 46-50 window on the points. I think Ohio State will squeak out a game. I think the fans are going to be, even though it's a noon game, I think they're going to come with a lot of energy for a noon game and try to throw Texas off their rhythm. So I think it's going to be an exciting game in Columbus, Ohio, and you're not going to want to miss it. Let's move over to the newly remodeled Doak Walker Stadium there, and the Florida State Seminoles are welcoming the Alabama Crimson Tide in for a Saturday 3:30 game. And this is going to be an unknown game for Florida State. I don't know that anybody really knows exactly how Florida State's going to look this year. We think we know what Alabama's going to look like. Remember, Alabama was in my preseason Baker's Dozen. I had them as the number 5 team in the country. I think Alabama is going to be much improved in a playoff team this year. They're starting Ty Simpson. It's been announced. They're going to roll with Ty to start the season. I think it's a smart move. The kid can run. The kid can throw. He's going to be throwing to one of the most talented wide receiving corps in the country with Alabama. You know, they've got, obviously, Williams and Bavard and Horton as a transfer from Miami. So they're going to have a really solid receiving corps there at Alabama. They did lose Jam Miller for some portion of the season here, but they got a really solid stable of running backs. It's just a matter of who's going to get the carries there. I love Alabama's defense at all levels. They probably got one of the best defenses of the country coming back on paper. They're really stacked up. They got 8 of their top 10 tacklers coming back. They're just a really loaded football team. If Ty Simpson can play just well enough, he doesn't have to be a superstar. He just doesn't need to make mistakes and move the ball. I think this could be a very powerful team this year. Now, Florida State, on the other hand, they got Tommy Castellanos coming in from Boston College, and he's got a big mouth talking about all this stuff. Wait till you see us and all this. Now, you know, most of the scouting report on Tommy is that he's a runner. And, you know, you look at last year's stats at him at Boston College, he had a net rushing of about, what did he have? Had a net rushing of 194 yards. But he had 344 yards rushing. But after his losses of 200 plus, you know, he was down to 194. So I don't know that Tommy's this super great Jalen Milroe type running quarterback here or anything like that. He's not a great passer. If you watched Boston College football last year, at 1,300 yards passing, I just don't know where all the talk is coming from. He doesn't seem to me like he has a giant skill set to take Florida State to the next level. We'll see exactly. Florida State, again, they got Gus Malzahn coming in as the offensive coordinator. They got a lot of new pieces to this team. It's really a mystery on what we expect to see out of Florida State this year. I'm not going to lie to you. I really don't know what to expect. I think I'm going to expect them to be better than last year, which isn't a really, saying much here, but I just don't know what to expect from Florida State, so I'm not going to give them a lot of credence to win this game. Can they keep it inside the 13.5 points that they're getting? I'm right on the bubble on that personally. I got this game coming down at 34-21. That puts you just inside the 13. If you take Florida State 13.5, you'll win by half a point. Could be 35-21. You could lose by half a point. I just don't see Alabama losing this game, folks. Starting the season, even though it's a new Doak Walker remodel, they're going to be fired up. 3:30 game. Everyone's going to have their eyes on it. It's the biggest game of the hour. So I'm not going to put a lot of faith in Florida State can pull this upset. We got an over-under at 50.5. I got this game going just over at 55 based on my score. Could be 56. I really think Alabama may start off slow in this game, but they're going to dominate this game. They're just going to lean on Florida State until they break, and I just don't see Florida State having a chance to win this game. All right, let's move to Saturday night in Death Valley, Clemson. That's right, we got the Battle of the Tigers, the LSU Tigers versus the Clemson Tigers. And folks, this is going to be one of the great games of the weekend. I promise you that. Scoring-wise, this should be one of the biggest, highest scoring games of the weekend between both teams, in my opinion. And we're looking at Garrett Nussmeier taking his number 3 wide receiving core down to battle Cade Klubnik and his number 2 wide receiving core, and someone is going to win the air contest of the weekend, and that is going to be which quarterback is going to hit the 400 number first, and I think it's going to be Cade Klubnik. I like the Clemson Tigers in this game because of the defense. I think the defensive line is stacked at Clemson. They've got Helt, Parker, Woods, Capehart. They got 3 guys behind them. They are loaded in this defensive line. LSU is going to be coming in with a revamped offensive line that's going to need a little bit of work. And how are they going to handle this big hog mollies up front for Clemson? I think that could be the difference in the game. Who's going to get the running game going first? Could be a difference too. If this game gets to a slugfest, a defensive slugfest, who's going to be able to run the ball? We got Gideon Davidson, the freshman at Clemson. Could he get some carries? We'll see exactly where that lines up. I think Clemson's defense is just stronger than LSU's defense going into the season. Now, we'll see how they end up, but going in, I'm putting my money on Clemson's defense over LSU's defense and stopping these high-powered offenses. I think both of these offenses are going to score. I'm looking at this game at a Clemson 34, LSU 31. The over-under on this game is minus 3.5 for Clemson. So, as you can see, based on that, I'd be taking LSU into 3.5. I think this is a really, really, really close game. 3-1 points will be the difference. I don't think it'll get over 4, 5, or 6 points. I think both teams are going to be really strong. The question is going to be, is Garrett Nussmeier going to make the mistakes that we saw him make last year in some critical key situations? Will he be able to fix those things going into this season? Look, I think it's a tough place to play when you're playing in Death Valley. I don't care if you're playing in Clemson or Baton Rouge in a night game, one of the toughest places to play in the country, and you got to come with your A game. I don't have a lot of faith in Brian Kelly's history, in LSU's history over the last 5 years, over a couple coaches, in winning this first game. So they're going to have to prove me wrong on that before I'm going to pick them here. But I'm going to go Clemson 34, LSU 31, which puts me at 65, which is over the 57.5 over-under line that was on FanDuel earlier today, Tuesday. So I'm taking Clemson in a close one. If you want to take the points in the 3.5 in LSU, probably wouldn't be a bad bet, and I'd take the over here, obviously for entertainment purposes only. Let's move down to Miami, and the last game we're going to cover, Sunday night game between the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the Miami Hurricanes. That's right, folks. We got the runner-up in last year's national championship game, traveling to the new look Mario Cristobal Hurricanes. and Carson Beck as the starting quarterback. Now, we did get news out of South Bend that C.J. Carr is going to be the starter for this game for the Fighting Irish, and he's got a big prospect, 5-star arm. We'll see how well he can play in his first game on a tough environment, traveling to Miami. The heat and the humidity could get to him down there. And obviously Notre Dame has the big returning starter at running back in Jeremiah Love, folks. And I think this is going to be the difference in this football game, is that Notre Dame's ability to run the football against the Miami defense. And Jeremiah Love's going to start off his Heisman campaign in 2025 with a big game. I'm really excited to see Notre Dame's defense again this year. This should be a real force to be reckoned with. I think that you're going to be, playing slugfest with Notre Dame against this defense that they have. So it's going to be tough to score against this D. And again, looking at Miami, like I said, we got Carson Beck coming in here from Georgia. The kid threw for 7,000 plus yards at Georgia, so he's not going to be fooled by what Notre Dame's throwing at him defensively. He should have seen it at some point in the SEC for all those years. But can he hit the targets that he's going to be throwing to? Remember, Miami lost their 6 top receivers from last year in production yards. So he's got a whole new group of receivers down there. Can they gel quickly enough to break this defense down for Notre Dame and get enough points on the board? It'll be exciting to see. And again, can the Miami defense hold Jeremiah Love to a respectable total, which in my opinion would be probably under 80 yards. If he's going to bust out more than 100, I think it's going to be a challenge for Miami to win this game. So their run defense has really got to step up and hold back the number 1 running back in the country in Jeremiah Love, and it's going to be a real challenge for them. Now, the other thing is, can Miami get a running game started? They've got 2 returners from last year, and Mark Fletcher and Jordan Lyle. Combined, these 2 rushed for 1,000 yards. But are they going to be able to get the running game going? Let Carson Beck get some play action happening. If they're going to be a one-dimensional team, I think it's going to be challenging for Miami. So they're going to need to get this running game going in a strong way to start this game. I really think this should be a fun game to watch. I got Notre Dame winning this game 27-23. The over-under on this game is Miami getting 2.5. So as you can see, we're still not there at 25.5 if it ends up at 27-23. We got an over-under on this game at 49.5. I'm pegging this game at 50, so just slightly on the over. It definitely could be on the under. It's a real crapshoot there at 49.5. I think it's a 50-point game personally. I got Notre Dame winning on the road at Miami 27-23. So I take the Notre Dame and give the points in the over based on that prediction, and obviously entertainment purposes only. Okay, well, there's our week 1 predictor show, and let's for a real recap here. I've got Georgia Tech beating Colorado 27-24 in a real thriller up there in Boulder, Colorado. I got the Baylor Bears beating Auburn 31-27 in that battle in Waco. Both those games on Friday night. Ohio State outlasting Texas in a duel of defenses of 26-24. Real close game. This one can flip around, folks. It's going to be a tight one. The line 2.5 on FanDuel today. I've seen it at 1.5. I really don't know where this is going to be, other than it's going to be a blast of entertainment to watch to see exactly where we go from here with these 2 teams. But I'm going to take Ohio State to squeak out a 26-24 victory on a last-second field goal or something to win this thing. We got Alabama traveling down to the remodeled Doak Walker to play the Seminoles. I got Alabama coming out of that game at 34-21. I think Alabama's defense will be too much for old Tommy and the boys down there and the Seminoles, and I don't think they can get this win even in the newly remodeled Doak Walker. Then we move on to Saturday night in Death Valley, and I've got the Clemson Tigers beating the LSU Tigers 34-31 in an instant classic on ESPN. You're not going to want to miss this game. Battle of two great quarterbacks going at each other with top three wide receiver core in the country. This is going to be a heck of an offensive battle. I just think Clemson's defense will have enough at the end to pull this game out. 34-31 for Clemson. And then to finish off the weekend down there in Miami, we've got the Notre Dame Fighting Irish winning over the Miami Hurricanes at 27-23. So that's going to be a great weekend of football. We still got some football on Monday night. I won't get into it, but we got TCU going to Bill Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels. Who can win that game? Could Bill Belichick get a first win of his college football coaching career? Who knows? Wait around to find out on Monday night, but it'll be an exciting game also there. All right, remember, gather round in ALTT. We'll see you next Monday on Week 1. 5 thoughts on this week in college football. 12:15 will be the drop on YouTube. 5 a.m. for the podcast.